Everyone, welcome back to Symbiosis Weekend. And today we are very pleased to have Alicia to share with us her artistic journey through the mentorship program. And she was being mentored together with other artists under Gabriela's guidance. So take it away, Alicia.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'm gonna share my computer. I'm gonna go over there. Are you everybody go seeing the yellow thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. So, hello, hi first. I'm Alicia Márquez, and I like to define myself as an artist who loves exploring languages. I'm from Jujuy, a province up in the north of Argentina, and my first big migration was to Buenos Aires to become a graphic designer. Then I ended up in Miami, Florida, and after a few years, I moved this time to Chicago. When I moved to the States, I started studying calligraphy. My graphic design degree had been focused on typography, a hard focus on typography. So I figured learning calligraphy would be a breeze since I already knew so much about it. But guess what? I was completely wrong. I didn't know anything about it. And in the process, I discovered an amazing, amazing world. I like to think of calligraphy as a language, a form of expression. And I was determined to learn it, just like I was learning English at the time. When it comes to education, the University of Buenos Aires gave me a solid base um, in typography and letters. Mm. But also the Chicago Calligraphy Collective with its amazing, amazing community helped me to develop my creative and artistic skills. In my calligraphy journey, I took a lot of workshops to master traditional hands, but I was always drawn to the expressive side, the one that tells stories through emotions and feelings beyond any formal language. Whenever I read Paul Klee's quote, a line as a dot is a dot that went for a walk, I imagine myself being that dot's companion. And I can't help but wonder, what shoes should I wear for that walk? What's gonna be like? It's going to be on the streets, it's gonna be in the mountains, over the rainbow. Should I eat first? Do I need water? So I took this dot by the hand and moved it across the paper to create these playful lines. Then I found this dot that was very heavy and created strong lines. And this one was a very light dot who created these lines like a ballerina dancing on her toes. This one was very gentle and soft. Or in this case, it looks like this dot jumped on the skateboard and played some dangerous acrobatic tricks. Or this dot that was carried by a mosquito or a firefly. Or here, where the dot wanted to create technical lines, making blueprints to fold the paper. Or here, where the dot turned it into a thread that I moved by hand to draw letters with it. Barbara Hepworth was an artist and a sculptor. And this quote really shows the connection between the hands and carving. The full quote even says the left hand is the sensitive hand. When carving is the left hand that tells you how soft is this Indiana stone, in comparison, for example, with the Wisconsin limestone. The left hand feels how hard or soft you have to hammer when you need to do something small and detailed. It's the one that finds the perfect angle to create curves. It's the one that makes you stop, breathe, and focus. It's the hand that commands the exact position to take out chunks of stone. It's also the hand that deals with the unpredictable marble and its veins. It's the one that follows your command and gracefully doesn't mess up, even when all you think is that you are going to mess up on these small details. Also, it's the hand who signs for you, leaving marks that shows your personal rhythm. I'm right-handed, but when I was a kid, I really wanted to be left-handed because I thought it was cool. I tried so hard, but I couldn't. Who can? Carving stone is my little revenge. And I get this childlike happiness every time I think I made it. I'm left-handed now. I told this to my therapist, and he was very proud of me that resolving, that child trauma through art. And here we are. Life is good and generous, and Dorothy created this group of Latinas Spanish speakers where we have a lot of fun. My first project was about rubbing and printing. Takuhan is an ancient technique used to transfer inscriptions or images from stone steels and metal plates onto paper. This technique originated, in East Asia, has been instrumental in analyzing, exploring historical texts and artworks. I can't, there. My idea was to carve a stone first and then use the rubbing printing process to generate enough content to create a book. I started working on the lettering using the final paragraph of the poem I Am Waiting by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. The poem rhythm made me think of water movement. So I used bold and light letters variables to create a wave-like effect, showing constant movement. This was the first draft made with a font and the base to start manipulating the strokes to make them more carving friendly. This was the final drawing. I adjusted the endings, gave the letters a bit of bounce, and refined the strokes to make them more chisel friendly. So it was before and after. And here the stone, a nice slate ready to be carved. At the same time, I started making all the tools I needed for the task. Dabbers called tampo in Japanese, sumi ink, and various brushes to work with the paper. The first step in the process is to dampen the paper. Koso or any long fiber paper works well. When it's fully damped, you start pounding it gently with soft brushes wrapped in fabric. This helps the paper get into every part of the stone you want to print, creating a debossed effect whenever there's texture or carved letters. And you let it dry at least for a day to a week, depends on the stone and depends on the paper and depends on the place where it is. When the paper on the stone is completely dry, it's time to start rubbing. For this, you use a pair of dabbers to spread the sumi ink evenly on the fabric and then gently pound it onto the paper. These steps require more than just following instructions. It's all about sensibility, rhythm, precision. The pounding needs to be firm enough to transfer the ink, but gentle enough to avoid damaging the paper or leaving dabber marks. Extra care is needed near the edges of the letters to keep the borders sharp and clean. The test pieces turned out okay, but they weren't as sharp as I wanted, and I struggled to manage the ink density properly. So I have to do make an okay here. I'm good. I also couldn't achieve that flat, deep black uh, kind of print you see in professional Chinese and Japanese print. I kept testing. My original idea was to print at least 2 layers of ink in different colors using the same stone, and to use transparency to create additional colors. But that also means dampening and pounding the paper at least 4 times, which puts a lot of stress on it. Then I started testing on the stone I was carving specifically for this project. By this point, I was getting better with the technique of damping the paper of the stone, but my printing was still rough and inconcise. I also tried doing some ink drawings over the printed paper, but they bled a lot, probably because the paper had already taken so much stress. At this point, I hit the limit of what I knew and felt I needed more time to explore other variables like ink consistency, different papers, dabber sizes, and more. All of that requires a lot of time, and I decided to pause and take a step back to analyze what I've done and figure out how to move forward. Looking back now, I think all the testing and experimenting brought me to a really solid new starting point. I have a much clearer idea of what I need to improve and learn. So stay tuned. At some point, I will come back to this project and finally create the book I originally envisioned. Then it was time to start with my second project. This quote from Fernando Pessoa always kind of gets to me, sorry. In a good way. At first, I decided to use just the first sentence, but I ended up using the whole thing. Similar to the first project, I used wavy lines as the background and texture, symbolizing existence, transition, movement. I decided to write between those lines, letter by letter. I experimented with different lettering styles, same as wavy lines, more or less structured. I ended up liking this round, bold, inflated lettering because it kept the design in the same language as the vertical lines. This time I wanted also to experiment with layering, but also incorporate collage. I ended up cutting those vertical lines with the letters inside and one by one layering each half on the previous one. In this example, the blue layer is on top. Layer by layer, the words are built from left to right. This is one of the first tests. In these details, you can see how I use the shape of the letter cut behind in the bottom to create the embossing of the same letter on the layer above. Once I have the technique figured out and kind of working, I returned to the book design. I decided to make an accordion with the first sentence of Pessoa quotes. However, when I tried to fold the paper, it had become too thick to bend, So I had to rethink the layout. I ended up with this more stepped layout, still in an accordion format, but without any compromise over the paper layout on the bending parts. I decided to use the first sentence of the quote for the collage across the left side of the spreads, leaving the right sides free to write the entire quote calligraphically. These are the final lettering designs for the collages. I vectorized the entire process because once I have the draft, I can work faster on the computer. I also wanted to use a plotter to, to cut these parts. After a lot of testing with the vector files, paper, and blades, I successfully cut all the pieces with the plotter. It's common to think that a plotter is a fast way to get things done or a shortcut. Well, it can be true. It's important to clarify that it's not an easy tool to work with. You need to excel in vector work to achieve a clean cut. Additionally, you have to test various papers and find the right blades for each project. All this takes more time than you might imagine. But I also have an extra reason for using a plotter in this work, and I will share that reason in the next conversation next Saturday, so stay tuned. And here's the puzzle. With all the pieces cut, gluing and embossing was really fun. With the help of a light board, I dedicated more than a couple of days just to gluing and embossing. The first ones weren't very neat, but in the end, I felt much more confident manipulating the PBI, the process of gluing, and the embossing. Once I have the collages ready, I tested different writing styles for the right side of the spreads. I decided to go with a very loose, minimal writing style inspired by regular italics. And I started to try the foldings also, and the book started to felt solid. I fixed some details, refined the edges, and created a simple black cover with a wavy detail. And here it is. This third project was based on the same text and technique, but in a different format, a poster. I experimented with different collage layouts. This one was vertical. This layout featured the collage at the bottom with the idea of placing the writing on top. And this last one was featuring the college as a centerpiece, and I decided to go with this one. And with yellow. In the context of Pessoa quotes, I connected existence to life using yellow to represent like a vibrant universe and existence. The paper wasn't as easy to work with as the white paper because it was a bit thinner, but I managed. And I decided to write the full quote on the bottom right side, following the shape of the waves of the college. This is the final piece. And here's a short video to observe the details. And the final piece was a group piece. Gabriela Soba lives in Barcelona, Spain, Roxana in Silesia, Poland, Ines in Tucumán, Argentina, and I'm in Chicago, USA. So we decided to use our locations to create a shape that connect us. And I picked beautiful stones to hold our initials. Pebbles are smoothed by time and touch. They roll, keeping echoes the rivers and shores. And they are waiting to tell so many stories. They are simple and beautiful, strong and resilient. I connected these pebbles, just like we are connected now. But we're also travelers, and we move in at every level, physically, in our learning. So I figured out we can go and visit Dorothy in Singapore. And then, just keep going like we usually do, but always connected. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Bravo. Yay, so beautiful. A lot of comments. Wait, there is a question. Annabelle wants to know, was there a theme for your group? Uh, was there a theme that your group was working on together?
Just the last one, the
Mm,
one we call Gray because it was the
mm,
initials of our names. And we only decided on the shape of who was made by the locations where we were living,
mm.
and each one of us did whatever we want with that shape.
Yeah, okay. There are a lot of comments. So far, no questions. Does anybody have a question for Alicia? Actually, you can just unmute if you want to say something or ask her something. How did you do the animation?
After Effects.
After
I'm a graphic designer, so
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
used
yeah,
to do
yeah.
motion graphics. Yeah.
Nice, very nice.
But I carved the stones, I just photographic them and use it as a element. Yeah.
It's lovely. This is the first time I think that Symbiosis has had a stone carver. Yeah, so I mean it's for us very delightful, to see you expressing calligraphy onto solid material like that, and we're all in awe. If you look at the comments, like everybody is saying, "Oh my goodness, lovely, great work." Yeah. Can I just ask, how is it that you came across? I mean, what got you started doing stone carving?
So when I was like 20 years old and I started the university, my university was very focused on typography.
Mm,
And one of the first works to do in the first level of typography was before we even designed any letter or anything. Our professor, it was Ruben Fontana, asked us to carve a letter, a capital Roman, in That's the material you use for very soft material you use when you broke a hand or something. A white powder that became hard.
Like plaster?
Plaster, in
Mm,
plaster. So he made us make blocks of plaster, and
mm,
then we carved a Trajan letter.
wow.
And I was just amazed for that because we did that before even we learned anything about typography. Um, so, and then that stayed with me. Um, and then, I just life and everything. And when I moved to the States, I started learning calligraphy. And I thought, well, that's what I need to learn to do that. Because if not, I'm gonna start carving other person letters and I want to carve my letters. So that's why I started doing more intense calligraphy to learn. Always having like that, not that clear, but always having that in my head. But that thinking was become more clear and clear that that's what I wanted to do. And when I felt comfortable with my knowledge on calligraphy, I just jumped my first workshop on letter carving that was with Eric Marland and Tom Perkins in the UK. Uh, and it was exactly what I thought it was gonna be, just amazing. Just working with light. It's like working with light. Your medium is the light when you carve. And and when I started carving, I started seeing everything through the light. The same with collage. When you work with textures or something, it's all about the light. If you don't have light, you don't see those things.
Mm,
Um, so so that's
wow.
how I started.
Yeah, it's quite amazing because when you look at lettering, it's 2D, but you have to translate it in your mind into a 3D form, and that for me it's wonderful. I mean the process is very magical. I guess maybe for you it's not magical, but for us it is.
No, it is. It is every time. And also the stones.
Mm,
We always think the stones as a hard thing, like um, a no life thing, But they've been living in this earth for 50 million years. They have a lot of story to tell.
mm,
And every time you carve a stone, you're carving like millions years into. So I feel like super respectful every time I carve something. And especially when I find any like a small shell or something, because they were there like so long. We are so young in comparison. We are nothing. And I'm trying to understand that and to follow and to hear what the stone says, because that's the other thing. It's an inanimated thing. It's a material thing. But when we intervene on that, if we don't know how to hear, we don't know how to work with it. So you have to establish kind of a friendly relationship there uh, to understand how the stone want to be carved. Every stone is different. Everyone.
thing. Okay, Gabby's saying it will be a good idea maybe to talk about the size of your pieces. And
Mm.
yes, I mean the what you just said about, respecting the stone. I mean that is a very interesting and beautiful perspective. Yeah. So I mean the scale of your work, how big are your pieces actually?
The book, I think, is about 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. It's a square. The posters is the double size, probably 40 centimeters for 40 centimeters is big.
Okay.
And the stones, the pebbles are probably the biggest one, 10 centimeters. They are river pebble stones. Um, yeah, and the other stones I use for rubbing, those are bigger. Some of them are like probably 50 centimeters.
Mm,
Uh, yeah.
yeah. So when you were producing your pieces for exhibition, what was the biggest challenge actually? Because I imagine that you already have a process, right? You are quite an experienced, seasoned designer and artist, so you have your own creative process. But when you were making art for this exhibition, what was the difficult? What were some of your challenges?
Well, it's like as a graphic designer, we have like deadlines and objectives and communications and um, communication requests. Like concepts requests. For this was totally freedom that I loved. So I think the hardest part, as usual, is just to find your own limits to process, not limits on creativity. How you limit yourself to be productive in terms of generate something at some point, or 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 kind of even if you don't finish a job, to get at some point that you know that you learn something. um, I used to work before, like especially in calligraphy, just doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff, and then never stop to analyze, never stop to see or be comfortable saying, "Oh, it's pretty, it's nice." Um, I think that for this show, I was trying to, other than go far and come back, trying to see, well, what I'm gonna get from this process. For example, with the rubbing, at some point I was kind of frustrated because I really wanted to do that, and I want to do that, but it's a lot of work, and it comes from a culture and process, from a culture that I'm not familiar with, and from times that requires those testing that I I didn't have, and probably I didn't have this same mood you have to be to do that. And I think that's cultural. So I have to know more about that to get in the mood, to understand the rubbing better. But now I can think about that. First, I was like totally lost, trying to produce and produce to see where I can get. And when I passed the frustration point that I'm not getting what I envisioned, and I could observe and analyze, I think, well, maybe this is where you're gonna get at this point. Just stop, think about, be objective, and try to ask people, how can I continue with this? What's the best material for this? Do I need more time? That kind of stuff that now I can do. So just finding those limits, I think, was a good thing for me. Also, I was working a lot with colleges this year, so that's what I wanted to experiment also in this. And but also like being precise, not just playing. Let's find a good concept, a good text, find an object you want to make, and go for it.
Um, Thank you. There is a question from Anna. Do you have a reason why on the poster is yellow and the book and the map were made in white paper? And what is the quality of the paper? Is it a matter of taste?
Well, the white paper is Canson uh, for watercolor, the 300 grams, the thick cotton paper, very nice to cut, and also gives enough um, thickness to see white and white. For the white, I don't have an excuse. I just wanted to do kind of a white book, and then I ended with using like the opening and ended and blue because I like highlights, and I love to work on white and white. To me, light is the main color in everything I do, just the light itself. For the yellow, I like color a lot, but I don't work usually with color because I don't have an artistic background. I have a technical background, so I can talk a lot about colors, about printing colors, but professional like offset printing color. But in terms of artistic colors and combinations, I don't have the background. I've been learning little by little, but it's not in my background, but I love color. And lately I was trying to, experiment more with it. And in this, especially in this quote that is a little dark or ironic, is existential or whatever, to me it also was kind of fun because it triggers me. It makes me think about existence itself. And and to me, existence is happy. And I don't know why it's yellow. So, and yellows always makes me happy. And, in my home, I have a lot of yellow stuff. Uh, so that's why it was a very personal choice. And the yellow paper is a Nina paper, a professional printed paper. It's not 100% cotton, but it's a very good paper who allows you to cut well, to print, to bend well. I think it was like 180 grams or something like that, not as thick as the watercolor Canson
Mm,
uh, paper.
nice. Okay, Annabelle says it's fabulous how you explore making the paper have depth by rubbing and debossing, by overlapping. And then comes your stones that are truly three-dimensional, and your lettering is exquisite.
Oh, thank you.
Exquisite.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful, very beautiful. I just want to ask you about your relationship with your mentoring group because three of you are also different. The medium is different, so how do you influence and affect one another, and what was the takeaway that you have from having a group like
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned, Dorothy, that you wanted to mix also age
mm,
and, to get all kind of diversity on the groups. And I thank you for that because, for example, we have Ines, who was the older of us, and then we have Roxana, who was the younger of us. And I think that's make us learn a lot from each other, just from that starting point. It's like, and the different backgrounds. Like Ines was from the painting side. Roxana does point nibs that I cannot even think about how to do it. It's just and I'm and ow every time I'm seeing that. And also like the dedication we have was totally different. Roxana is like super on the point. She's precise. She committed and everything. Ines will just fly from every place, and we will have to bring her back all the time. And I don't know. I cannot describe myself, but we were in the whole diversity. We become good friends, and we kind of liked a lot each other. And well, of course, the bending part was Gabriela on that, and she was always making us stop talking and trying to focus. And so I think I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from each one of them, and I think I was also myself in a good place to be a mentee. If I was doing this like 10 years before, I probably wasn't be as open as I'm now. It's like you learn more stuff, and there's some moments of your life to do some things, and then, or you will do it different in another moment. Um, I felt very confident that I will start and finish something, and I like it. I like my pulse. I think they're awesome, and I will never have known Roxana if it weren't for this work, or Ines. And Ines lives in a place very close to my family in Argentina, but I probably will never knew her because we don't do the same things neither.
mm,
So. Um, no, in a personal way, it was just the people. It was amazing to
nice.
know them. Yeah.
That's nice. That's lovely. Yeah, I think that the commitment that everybody has to the same process, that kind of brings the artists together. I think you're sharing the same intensity, the same journey, the same trials. in a way, having the deadline. Actually, Alicia, I really appreciate you because you are already very established and very known in your field. You know, like people know you for the kind of work that you do, and then coming in as a mentee and trying to explore and do things that you've never done before. I mean, I really, really respect that. You know, being willing to what I always say, embrace the spirit of a beginner. You know, like we are gonna try this. We've never done this before, and then just jump head along into it. It was a totally new experience, and you know, a lot of people don't like to do that. It's like, okay, I'm very known for something. I don't want to go back to being a beginner at something else. But this is exactly what you know you have done with that spirit of adventure. We are all so blessed because of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think when you lost your beginners feeling and anything, you're lost. I think you always have to be there to learn more. And even when you think you learn something, you know, at the end, you know that you don't know everything. So there's always so much space to grow and to prove different stuff and know more people, you know.
That's so awesome. Do any of your team members want to say something to you? Roxana is here. Gabriela is here.
Yes. I just want to say that it was my pleasure and honor to share these past months with Alicia because she's a reminder that dreams can come true.
Oh,
And the fact that really she comes from a very, for me, it was hard a transition from a technical to an expressive side. But seeing her, it was like, it is possible. She's coming from a technical side, but she's, when you meet her, she's like a walking library, but not about knowledge, but about creativity. She's so resourceful. She it's so much how to say, so much art, and she creates a lot, and to see her how she quickly transitions from one idea to another one, it's amazing to see because she was introducing us to all these new worlds that we were all amazed by, and she was like, maybe I'll do something else because this is not exactly what I want. And then she would come up with something incredible, and I was thinking like she has all this knowledge and skills, but also she's very down to earth and willing to help and share, and it was really my honor to get to know you and spend this time with you.
Very nice, Ro. Well, what can I say? I'm very proud of you, Ali, of your work, and that you made it. Because he was always wondering about, oh, I want to finish some. but it's a pleasure to me that we are from the same country and we studied in the same university.
wow. Really?
So we have a lot of common things. We have friends in common in Argentina, and we love typography and calligraphy. And maybe our work is not so, it's different, but we have the same background, I think, maybe. And I love this group. I really very different. Roxana has this peaceful. I don't know how to say, but and she brings up all this kindness, and Inez was fun and like family to us. So we were very, very happy together. We had very good times and bad times, at least, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We
Thank
made
you.
it.
It's life.
Yes.
We
Life,
made
yes.
different works.
Yeah, it's life. You know, everybody, when I'm included in these groups, they have like an Instagram chat. So I'm inside the chat. Everything is happening in Spanish. And
Pobre Dorothy.
if I want to know what's going on, I have to Google Translate.
Oh,
But towards the end of the, you know, as the exhibition date was drawing near, the chat was exploding. There's like a million things going on every day. And I believe it's not just the chat. I'm sure there's a lot of emails flying back and forth. And it was hilarious just to see them all come, you know, lighting up. And their social media is lighting up. So I know that they've worked so hard. And I really congratulate all of you for finishing so well. Yay,
Thank you.
awesome.
I think that Roxana can speak Argentino now.
Yes.
That's great. Does anybody else want to comment or, you know, just jump in on the conversation for a bit? Susan is smiling at me. Susan is good at comment.
You always, I was going to just ask, where does Michelangelo fit in with your stonework? Because you speak about, you know, the stone having this history, and he worked that way. He knew what was inside. Is that, have you studied him, or do you look to see?
No, I don't know much about him on that area. Now I will. I'll go and
Yeah, no,
research.
because
Yeah.
it sort of touched us that he could look at a stone and then begin to bring out what needed to be said from it, right? So yeah, no, that's what you're doing in your work. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Renaissance woman here.
Yeah.
Right.
There's so many things to approach the stone. I was talking the other day with Christopher Bowdens, and he was telling me that he approached the stones carving first and drawing on the stone, and then when he has some better idea, because it's going to be super physical, so, and then he probably transferred them to the paper to finesse and then come back instead of starting, you know, in the paper or something like that. Other persons just go and start carving the letters to feel the to have a sense of how the stone's gonna work, and then decide there if it's gonna be a thin stroke or a thick stroke, or it's gonna be a curvy letter or a sharp letter. So it depends on how the stone wants to be carved. There's a lot of learning about sensibility in your hands, especially in your hands, and because your eyes come after, you know, it's just to feeling how the material responds to you. It's a good talking, but you have to like be very open to hear, and it's not easy. And
Is there ever a crack that just puts you asunder or makes you reconsider
yeah,
what that object can be or your expression?
yeah, cracks happens, and it's everybody, you know, is always worried about what happened. You're working with a big stone, and then you did it wrong, and you know you're ruined. Well, that happened in paper too. You know, you are using a very expensive, I don't know, what's the name of the leather thing?
Vellum.
Parchment, vellum?
Vellum?
The parchment, a vellum, and you mess up, and there's a limit of how much you can fix it. You know, you can fix things, but it's also a fixing. With your work with your more expensive paper, it's the same. You know, if you mess up, you mess up. What do? You start again, or you try to fix this. With the stones, similar. And I have to say that the techniques on the stones are not that hard to learn. People are very afraid and think, oh, you need a whole life to do. In my experience, the learning curve of learning the technique of carving is very fast. And when you get the technique, is the probabilities of you breaking the wrong way the stone is minimal. because it's all about the technique. Other different thing is the art, what you do on that stone, what's the correct things to do on that stone in particular. But the technique itself is just work on it. And I didn't break anything really badly. I saw breakings very bad, but I don't work a lot neither. And it happens. You fix it. There's some level of fixing that you can do it. Some others, no, it's broken. And then, sorry.
That's the message from the stone. It's not happening.
Exactly.
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that insight.
Does anyone else have a comment? Debbie, you want to say?
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
Alicia, like people that work in paper have drawers and stacks of things. And then okay, I know you like origami and folding. So then you have tubs of paper that's all folded. And now you work in stone. Do you have some huge garage with your stone samples, or what do you do with all that?
Well, I have a basement. I work in my basement like Mary, and Mary is much nicer, better lights than mine. And I have full of stones there. I just have everything collected there. I don't have like a tons of really huge one, because the space. If I have a barn, I can assure you I will have giant stones and I will work bigger. But I can't. Yeah, I collect some of them. I recycle from the marble is the most easier to find, because you can do kitchens and things, and you can have all things to work. But I don't like much the marble to carve. It's very unpredictable. I like, of course, slate, and I'm in love with the limestone from Indiana. Here, that is a very soft stone, with a very big grain, but it's just delightful. And also, it's not toxic at all. You can literally eat it, and it just depends. And I like to use local stones, and that's right here. I can buy it in the city if I want. So yeah, and I have, usually pieces not bigger than, let's say, 18 by 20. That's my average size. They're heavy. The heavy part of working in stone is just dealing with the stones, but not the carving itself. The carving itself is just poor technique. You don't need to be strong. You don't need to be, you're not gonna, harm your hands or anything. It's just about technique.
So the sending of the stones to people would be very costly because of the weight. Yeah.
Yes.
Like if somebody
But
wanted to purchase one of your works, and then you have to send it, especially if it's overseas.
yeah, depends on the size.
Mm.
I've sent 3 stones like 20 by 20 centimeters or a little bigger to an exhibit in UK, and it wasn't that bad. A little bigger than that, sorry, probably 30 by 30.
Mm.
And it wasn't that bad. I put it, created packaging box for the 2 together, and it was a big box, a bit heavy, but manageable by one person, and it wasn't that much.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Great. Mary, do you have something to say?
Well, I was just the piece that you had in the Roman holiday, that was heavy. Because I know when I displayed that, I
Yeah.
was like, oh my goodness. So, but that was a nice long piece. That was beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a bit big. Yeah, to send out. Yeah.
Great. Well, if it's the hour has passed really quick, so I'm going to end the recording here. So thank you, Alicia, for sharing with us. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Everybody for
Great
being
job.
here.